Let's talk about the mechanic. No, not the one that fixes your car. This is a different kind of mechanic. Let's get into it. Hey, welcome back to my channel. Hope everyone is doing well out there. And today we're going to talk about 1972's The Mechanic, starring Charles Bronson. Charles Bronson stars as Arthur Bishop. Jan Michael Vincent plays Steve McKenna. And Jan Michael Vincent, if you're familiar with the 80s show Airwolf, was the star of that show. I'm very familiar with that. I used to watch it when I was a kid. And if you've ever seen it, that is him. And Jill Ireland plays a prostitute in this film. Jill Ireland and Charles Bronson were married from 1968 to 1990 when she sadly passed away. And they had worked on a total of 16 productions together. The director of this film was Michael Winner. Michael Winner and Charles Bronson worked together 6 times, three of which were Death Wish films. This was their second collaboration together, so they were familiar with each other by this point. And this film got released December 7th of 1972. It was rated PG. Now, I would think this movie would have got a rated R, but it got a PG. The rating system worked differently back then. There was no PG-13. This was the early 70s, so things were a little different than they are today. It's an hour and 40 minutes long, had a $10 million budget. Now, the gross on this film, I had a hard time finding. It's a little inconsistent in the reporting. Some sites say 7.3, some sites say like 14. I don't know, who cares? We're still going to talk about this damn film. Now, this film, the beginning of this film is excellent. Excellently staged, excellently shot, excellently acted, because nobody says a goddamn word for the first 16 minutes of this film. There's no dialogue. We see Charles Bronson's character, which we don't know his name yet because nobody says anything. And he's in this seedy, rundown hotel on this street in Los Angeles, and he's watching this apartment above this store across the street, and he's just watching this guy's every move. He's taking pictures. He's watching everything this guy does. This guy leaves. He goes over into his apartment, messes with the stove. He does something to it. He puts this stuff in his book on his bookshelf right across from his window. Like he could see the bookshelf right across the street. And he spikes his English tea. And he goes back to his hotel room and he just watches. And this guy comes back, makes himself some English tea, which extinguishes the pilot light on his stove. And the guy basically drinks a sedative and he falls asleep on his bed. Now, the apartment's filling with gas. Arthur Bishop gets a gun out and shoots the book, and here was an explosive in there and explodes. It's a massive explosion in this apartment. And basically what that did was burn up any evidence, and they'll think it was a gas leak. And we find out that Arthur Bishop is a hitman that works for this crime syndicate, this worldwide crime syndicate. And we see him going to see this childhood friend who was friends with his dad. His dad has passed away. And we're introduced to Steve. He has a brief scene where he's asking his father for money, and he kind of makes a couple digs at his dad. And we kind of get the sense that they have a kind of a contentious relationship a little bit, but they don't get into it too much. And basically, Steve's dad is asking Arthur has he heard anything about the syndicate being mad at him or anything? And Arthur's like, no, I haven't heard. They don't tell me anything. The only thing I know is when I have to go kill somebody. That's pretty much the gist of the conversation. Well, Arthur goes home and gets a package. He gets a certified package in the mail, and Steve's dad is his next target. So we see him plan it out, and he makes it seem like a heart attack. He kills Steve's dad, goes to the funeral to pay his respects, and Steve knows Arthur's in the syndicate, but Arthur won't tell him anything. And his dad never really shared too much about it either, but he's interested to learn about it. And Steve's a real cold fish. Like, he doesn't show too much emotion, and he invites Arthur back to his house he's having this big party. He just inherited his dad's wealth and his house. And this girl calls him, because I got to talk about this scene, because it's a very interesting, disturbing scene, uncomfortable scene. And he invites Arthur to go with him to this girl's house. And this girl's been infatuated with Steve. She's in love with him, but he doesn't show her much love. I don't think Steve's capable of showing love. And she's threatened to kill herself. And she says, tonight's the night. So he asks Arthur to go with him, which Arthur does, obliges and goes. And this girl's basically sitting in a robe on the floor, cross-legged, with razor blades, and she said, I'm going to do it, and I guarantee you won't let me die. You'll take me to the hospital. And Arthur doesn't say anything. He just kind of watches. He's a spectator in all this. And Steve's like, I'm not going to take you anywhere. You're making this decision. If you're going to do it already, because I'm sick of listening to this. I guess she's threatened us before we get the gist. And the girl does slit her wrist with this razor blade, and she sits there, and she goes, how long do you think I have? Steve's like, well, your injury is probably about an hour. It's going to take about an hour for you to bleed out. You'll start getting cold, and you'll know it's getting towards the end. And they just sit there and watch this girl bleed out. Nobody tries to save her, nothing. And finally she comments about how she's getting cold. And she goes, take me to the hospital, please. I'm done. Steve's like, I'm not going to take you anywhere, but you can drive yourself. And he gives her the keys. And she leaves and calls him pretty much a prick and leaves. And he shows no emotion to the whole scene. Arthur sees this and realizes he can use this to his advantage and train this kid to be a hitman because he has what it takes. emotionally. You can't be emotional about these things. So he starts training him, and they go on a hit, Arthur's next hit together, but it doesn't go as planned. They succeed, but it doesn't go as they originally had planned. And a spectacular motorcycle stunt where this guy goes probably going about 100 miles an hour off this cliff, and the motorcycle explodes. It's a fantastic stunt, and Michael Winner directs it very nicely. Well, here Arthur goes for a meeting, and you find out the syndicate's not happy with Arthur for bringing a stranger in, especially somebody who he just killed not too long ago. But Arthur's like, well, it's a benefit to you if somebody trained by me to do this kind of work. It's a win-win for everybody, and I don't have to answer anybody. He's pretty much saying. Well, they're not happy, but they say, okay, to smooth things over, we have a hit that needs to be done in Italy right away. But Arthur usually is used to taking his time, but he doesn't get time on this one. They tell him, like, you don't have much time, you got to go. So when he goes home, he realizes Steve got a dossier on him to kill him. But he doesn't say anything. He lets it go, acts like he doesn't know, and they go off to Italy. And they go to blow up this yacht to kill these people. And they're set up. They know they're coming, and there's an explosion. They get away, and there's a car chase. Really cool stunt work. A really cool scene by Michael Winner directing the crap out of it. And they kill everybody. They go back to the hotel. Arthur wants to get out of the country, but Steve's like, well, let's celebrate. You might never be back here again, or at least not for a while. So he gives him a wine glass, fills it, and here he poisoned it, and Arthur dies. And Steve basically gives a speech about, I'm going to go back to the States, but I'm going to work for myself. I'm going to kill anybody I want whenever I want. Like, Steve's totally gone. He's basically a psychopath at this point. So is Arthur, but Arthur's way more in control. Steve's more of a loose cannon type. So Steve goes back to the States, and he goes back to Arthur's house to get his car, and when he sits in his car, there's a note there from Arthur, and basically saying, yeah, if I'm dead, then you're about to explode. He rigged the car to explode. The car explodes in a ball of flames, and that's the end of the film. The roll credits. And that is The Mechanic from 1972. Now, they remade this film in 2011 with Jason Statham, Ben Foster, Donald Sutherland, directed by Simon West, who directed Con Air. And I like that version, and they switch it up. It's kind of the same story, but Arthur Bishop lives at the end. Instead of both of them dying. In the original movie, they both die. But it's a really well-constructed film. I like the remake as well. The sequel to the remake isn't quite as good, but I do like the remake as well. But I really like this film. It's a really good action thriller. Charles Bronson's fantastic. So is the rest of the cast. I like how they set up, how methodical he is, how he plans out his hits to make it look like it was an accident most of the time. Sometimes he has to resort to just shooting somebody. But it's a really well-done film. If you've never seen it, check it out. A little trivia on this one. Richard Dreyfuss was originally up for Steve, the character of Steve, but Charles Bronson did not like Richard Dreyfuss. So he nixed that idea because Charles Bronson was a bigger star then in the early 70s. And they went with Michael Vincent instead. So that was cool little trivia. But yeah, I really like this film. Have you ever seen it? I'm going to give it an 8.75 out of 10. That's right, an 8.75 out of 10 for The Mechanic 1972. If you've ever seen this film, leave a comment down below. Let me know what your thoughts are on it. Hit the thumbs up, hit the subscribe button, share this video. I greatly would appreciate that. I hope everyone has a great weekend, and I'll be back next week with some more reviews. Thanks.